दोस्त फेल हो जाए तो दुख होता है, दोस्त अगर फर्स्ट आ जाए तो ज़्यादा दुख होता है. This actually is not human behavior, but also the lines which narrate the solid character of a man who has been a versatile actor. For a man who has brought a sense of awakening, iron will, grit and determination by showing us the ordeal of an Indian scientist who was once accused of espionage and anti-national activities, to someone who also played the role of a bachelor who wooed a beautiful Rehna on the streets of Mumbai. He's someone who's also a doting father to a young son and proudly shares the feat of swimming. Joining me on the show of Catch the Stars is someone today who's the heartthrob of India. Welcome to the show, Mr. R Madhavan. Vanakkam in Chennai. What a wonderful career that you have had in this country and the love this country has given to you. I want to begin this interview by asking you a question which actually has not only brought laurels for this country, but has also generated a sense of curiosity on why you played this role. How satisfied today you feel by playing the portrayal of a scientist and bringing him the global recognition across the world?
Thank you so much for all the kind words. Very sweet of you. The film you're talking about is Rocketry, and the scientist that we're all talking about is Nambi Effect. When we set off to make a movie, there are more chances for it not to work than for it to actually become a hit. It's very strange that we are called a film industry when only 6% or 7% films actually become hits. So to say that I looked at this film and to make it into a hit is not the right reason. I always wanted to make a story about this scientist who was falsely accused on a scam of having a romantic relationship with a Maldivian woman and selling the secrets of Indian rocketry to Pakistan.
Right.
That was the reason that I had gone to meet Dr. Nambi Effect.
Correct.
Again, I'm saying doctor, my apologies, he's not a doctor, but he's Padma Bhushan Nambi Effect.
Right.
And I'd gone to meet him. And when I met him for this story, nobody knew about the other life of Nambi sir. You know, what he had achieved. Even he didn't talk about it. He was talking about how he was wronged and how the case was false and how ISRO was being held back by 20 years of development because of his arrest.
Right.
But after probing into his life, I realized what a huge contributor to the Indian scientific achievement Nambi sir has been. He has invented the Vikas engine, which is the only engine which has never failed till today.
Right.
And proved such an amazing workhorse for ISRO. I also realized one more thing, that America does this very beautifully with Hollywood. They always portray America as the leading power and the Americans as the most powerful men on earth. If there's an alien invasion, it's always the Americans who save us. If it's a problem to be solved with terror, it's always the Americans, and it's the American Navy SEAL which is the best and stuff. And it's a great marketing tool for America. Right. We have even better achievers in this country. Right. Considering the limited resources, we have such extraordinary super scientists who have done some extraordinary work. If you look at what the Indians are doing around the world today, right, and maybe not from India, but if you look at the sheer achievements of Indians as a nation, as a race, whatever, look at their positioning in the world today, from the highest tech companies to the highest offices to the most powerful pharmaceuticals. Everything is being headed by an Indian. But somehow the film industry has never looked in that direction to portray India or Indians in that light. And I thought this would be a good first step to do it. Nobody ever made a film on a scientist in India. Nobody made a autobiography on a scientist, especially somebody who deserves this kind of recognition, being completely innocent. So if you ask me the question, am I satisfied? When I met Mr. Nambi Effect, nobody knew about him. And nobody had done that about our Indian scientist, which I thought was very befitting.
Right.
And I think this is the first step. There are so many more Indians that we should talk about. So if your question was, am I satisfied? I'm very satisfied, because when I went to meet Mr. Nambi Effect first, nobody ever, except for Kerala, and especially the espionage case, nobody knew him for anything else.
Correct.
When I started the movie, he won the case, he got his compensation. More importantly, he got the Padma Bhushan, which the government of India thankfully and rightfully gave him. And now that the film has released, it's wonderful to see Nambi sir walk on airports or any place and get mobbed by children. You know, people who are in awe of him, people who are in awe of his achievements and are aware of rocketry and are aware of ISRO and the amount of contribution that ISRO has done to the people of the world. And when I say that, rocketry or, you know, space research or travel is not just about rockets and missiles and satellites. Everything that is developed for the sake of space travel it helps human beings in the normal day-to-day life, from road safety to, you know, like I've said this before, from, you know, microsurgeries to remote sensing satellites that help us take care of our borders. Every aspect of our life is enhanced by the research that is done for space travel.
I also very vividly recollect from this movie, because I've seen this multiple times, not because of the fact that I'm enamored of science, but also because of the fact that I'm enamored of you as someone who has been a versatile actor. Most of your roles have been very diversified. The genre which I'm talking about, you have played a journalist, you have played an Air Force officer, you have played, of course, a scientist here, and you have also played an engineer. Now, something which I'm talking about is maybe a little bit of hawkish stand which I want to take against our rival nations across the country. When we talk about this particular incident where he was accused of playing into the hands of Pakistan, India today, over the last 5 or 6 years, has been very belligerent when it comes to tackling the threat from the rival nation, whether we look at the Uri terror strikes or we look at the Balakot as well. Would you at some stage be also very keen to play the role of an army officer in future, where you actually portray what India is today? Because you've talked about the formidable country that India has become in science today, whether we look at the Chandrayaan, Gaganyaan and so on, the other missions.
Well, you know, playing a role in a movie, I can be desirous of whatever I want, but unless a script that comes along and churns your gut, one doesn't, you know, really have the choice of doing a film like that. And well, having broached that subject that you have right now, I think that the Indian Army has not been portrayed correctly yet by the Indian film industry. We have romanticized their contributions to an extent, but I do think that the real life, I think Uri came closest to it.
Correct.
And I think after that, but I think that when I meet my colleagues from the army, friends,
India deserves much better.
They're almost dismissive of the kind of stuff that we show. I wish we could do what Hollywood does for their army, you know, actually portray them in the amount of light they actually deserve. If you look at some of the talks of the colonels who talk about the bravery of their soldiers, you know, it's just it just gives you goosebumps as we speak. And, you know, and to be able to portray one incident like that on our film, I think is the least we can do for the sake of the army.
Correct.
But having said that, India is a formidable force and has been for quite a while right now. In the last 7-8 years, we've come on our own, you know, and not just with our rival nations who are our neighbors, but also with people who bullshit us from across the world. We've got a great foreign minister who stands up for us and talks what is right, and very few people have words against his argument. And it's wonderful to see India being represented like that around the world. I think that it's about time we represent the film industry too on that front foot. In fact, it's my dream now to make films and content out of India that becomes aspirational for the world. And we truly deserve it, with our rich heritage, culture and thousands of years of history and art and everything. For us to try and ape the West and, you know, vie for recognition from them doing what they know about the storytelling is, I think, a little sad. About time we actually project ourselves in a strong front foot, and, you know, as it is, the world is looking up to us in all aspects and fields, from spirituality to science to administration to finance to economy. It's time to make movies that glorify all that.
But you talked about, of course, foreign minister. I don't want to involve you in a political affair at this stage, but considering the fact that you took such a strong subject, rocketry, where you, of course, took up the cause of the scientist who was fighting his case, you think that odds would have been against you if you were to make this movie in an era when there was a different political party which did not absolve him of those charges?
Well, it's I think that would be an assumption, but to be fair to everything that happened, when the film released, it got accepted by all parties across the
Why I'm saying this, because at certain stage in 2019 Lok Sabha elections, Prime Minister himself mentioned Nambiji and his case to the world and accused the previous governments of doing injustice to such a proud scientist. He, in fact, before this movie, I mean, when the movie was being made, he went on to ISRO as well and famously hugged the then ISRO chief even after a failed mission as well, which sort of showed how the country is evolving and changing. You think this evolution was necessary either through your movie or at certain stage in politics as well?
Like I said, it was an incident that happened at a particular time in Kerala when political parties were probably not aware of his contribution. And it was absolutely horrifying and wrong what happened to him. But to take that up as a cause right now would not be, I think, would be agenda driven. What I'm trying to tell you is, he was not recognized. There was a harsh, and let me tell you that it's not just Nambi sir. There are so many Indian scientists who are disappearing on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
The sheer amount of unexplained deaths of scientists in our country doesn't seem to bother anybody. And I don't think that can be assigned politically. I think it's far more bigger forces at play. And we should make sure that, people who are considered as prime assets in other countries, especially people of Nambi sir's caliber and other scientists who are retiring on a day-to-day basis, they should be protected as national assets. And I think that awareness is coming in right now thanks to Rocketry.
Correct.
People are realizing that we need to, look at it very simply. The thing is, brother, if these scientists after retirement and their 3-year cooling off period decide to go abroad and work for some other company, they will be treated with diamond hands, if I may say so. They would make in 1 month what probably made in a lifetime.
Correct.
And if they join SpaceX, for instance, or any of those endeavors that are working today, by the sheer, because I'll tell you why, because it's a very simple fact that can hit you on the face. ISRO and Indian rocket scientists managed to do what the other world is doing at a fraction of a cost. At a fraction. And so, just to get them to say, how do you bloody send a rocket to Mars at a price which is less than the cost of a Hollywood film is good enough education for them. Absolutely. And I, if I was in Elon Musk's position, would pay my organs on my body to get these people to come and explain and share their experiences with us. And if you look at it in the overall sense, it's good for mankind, because I really think that space travel is essential right now and not just a choice.
I want to actually bring back the memories of your television career, which inspired you and how they inspired you to join the industry. Because as far as the rest of the India is concerned, I am concerned, we all understand that you studied in Jamshedpur, where your father was working as a Tata Steel engineer. How you got into the movies is still a mystery for all of us. What was that one gentle stroke which took you towards acting?
Actually, I was teaching in Mumbai when I got my first offer to do a serial on television, and that was because I'd just come back from my NCC days and working at the Army Attachment Camp in Akola and Amaravati, firing the Bofort guns and everything, and I had very short hair, and the role that I was offered was that of a convict.
Who offered you and who approached you?
We've talked about it many times, but it's about a guy called Vivek Bahel, who was directing his first love story, one episode on Zee TV at that time. Right. And it was called the Yule Love Stories, and I was playing a convict falling in love with a blind girl on a Christmas Eve.
Correct.
And it somehow was the match that lit the inferno, I think. Correct. Because I wasn't expecting to have a career in acting. It was not in my remotest realm of dreams, although it was always wishful thinking that everybody ever imagines becoming a superstar as an actor. And I think I did that when I was 17, but I never worked towards it. And then, my television career started off, and then my first film was with the unimaginable Mani Ratnam, who gave me, and I came to Chennai here and started my career as a film actor over here with a film called Alai Payude, which went on to be made as Satya in Hindi. Absolutely. And then, of course, it was all happy coincidences that I worked with the right people, with some of the stalwarts in the country, with some of the greatest names that the industry has seen. Right. And after 23 years, I'm still here. In
fact, for my own memories, as a young boy who would be coming back from college in the afternoon, I remember we would switch on the television, Banegi Apni Baat, Ghar Jamai, Seahawks. हम उस समय, क्योंकि आप तो हमारे से बड़े हैं उस उम्र में जी, हम कॉलेज से आया करते थे, मुझे याद है मैं शायद 3rd ईयर कॉलेज में हुआ करता था, यूनिवर्सिटी से आता था, तो हम लोग सी हॉक्स देखा करते थे. उससे पहले जब घर जमाई, योर फोरहेड स्मीयर्ड विद अ वाइट टीका, with Satish Shah Saab, that is also a beautiful memory of R Madhavan, which we knew of before you rose to such a big limelight. Acting opposite Satish Shah was something also incredible for us that opened us, people in North India, to the idea that how a South Indian actor can actually win the hearts of a bigger audience.
देखिए इसका पूरा श्रेय तो मैं जिस टीम के साथ मैं काम कर रहा था, खास करके अनंत महादेवन और सतीश शाह जी, जो कि उस वक्त के मतलब महारथी हैं इस जॉनर के। इन लोगों के साथ काम करने का जो मौका मिला, मुझे लगता है उसी का असर है जो आप स्क्रीन में मेरे काम में देख रहे थे। जो आसानी से वो लोग कॉमेडी कर लेते थे, जैसा हमने उस वक्त भी तय किया था कि हम ओवर एक्ट नहीं करेंगे, हम उसको मतलब फिर भी आज देखता हूँ तो मुझे लगता है कि हमने ओवर एक्ट किया था, पर उस वक्त के दौर के हिसाब से जो हमने परफॉर्मेंस करने की कोशिश की तो उसे रियल रखने की कोशिश की थी, रिलेशनशिप्स को रियल रखने की कोशिश की थी, पंच लाइन्स को ज़्यादा पंच करने की मतलब नहीं करने की ज़रूरत थी, ये सब हमने बातें की थी और इसकी वजह से वो रियल हो गया। और सतीश शाह जी ये सीरियल पहले कर चुके हैं, घर जमाई विद अनंत महादेवन, और ये दूसरा दौर था। तो उस दौरान जब मेरे को इनके साथ काम करने का मौका मिला तो मैं देखता था कि ये कैसे प्रिपेयर करते थे, लाइंस जो लिखे हुए नहीं हैं पर एंड मौके पे बहुत अप्रोप्रिएट साउंड करते थे बिकॉज ऑफ देयर सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर, वो कैसे बोल जाते थे और जिसकी वजह से मुझे उनकी तरह सोचने का मौका मिला, उनकी तरह जिस तरीके से वो सोचते हैं उसे ऑब्जर्व करने का मौका मिला और उसी वजह से मुझे लगता है कि ये तजुर्बा जो है निखर के आया बाहर और उसका असर आप उस टेलीविजन सीरियल पर देख पाते हैं।
In fact, that comic touch went on to, I would say, become part of Three Idiots as well, Tanu Weds Manu as well, The Returns as well. All these three movies were something which actually made you a household name. If I may ask you, since you mentioned Mani Ratnam sir, Alai Payothe to Guru, which actually exposed you to the culture of what essentially getting into the skin of a character means today. Before that, I won't say that you had actually got into the skin of character, but Alai Payothe is something which, when you got into the skin of the character, Guru, very meaty roles, essentially speaking, inspirational roles of a journalist who is a very headstrong character, someone who's very impulsive on the nature when he sees a powerful industrialist in front of him and to take him on. How do you think you went into the skin of the character by preparing, researching and working with Mani Ratnam? What were those memories and how do you today contribute your success to Mr. Mani Ratnam?
Well, you've been a brave and a super efficient and fantastic journalist yourself and done many exposés. You understand the kind of guts it requires to do something like that. For me, when I was reading the story of Mr. Murthy, who was playing, I realized that he must have been equally gutsy, you know. And Mani sir had a view of seeing it. In fact, that film was not named after any of the characters that existed on, for whatever reason, it was not mentioned about whose lifestyle it is.
Absolutely.
Okay, but the characters were pretty much real, and I realized how much of strength of character and conviction it would have taken for Mr. Murthy, and I think it was modeled after Mr. Guru Murthy. I don't think, I know it was, and Mani sir had a take on it.
Right.
You know, when we do the films as actors, this is actually an insight into it, okay? We can't even begin to imagine कि यार ये लाइन का या इस रोल का या इस फिल्म का इतना बड़ा इम्पैक्ट होता है, क्योंकि हम इतने नर्वस होते हैं, हम इतने मतलब इन्वॉल्व होते हैं कि भैया हम सही काम कर रहे हैं नहीं, हमें उससे बाहर निकल कर we don't get to see what the impact can be.
Correct.
So in fact, some of the dialogues that I'm credited with in the film, while saying them in the film, I didn't realize that this is going to become iconic lines at all. मतलब दूर दूर तक I was not sure, I was clear that these are all very normal lines.
Very normal lines.
क्योंकि you know, like, excuse me, जैसे रंग दे बसंती में कोई भी देश परफेक्ट
नहीं होता, उसे बेहतर बनाना पड़ता है।
और हाँ, ये सब जो लाइन हम बोल रहे थे वो तो हमने लाइन को अपना लिया और वैसे बोला जैसे अगर मैं वाकई में कहता तो जैसे कहता। अलय पायदे में भी ऐसे कई लाइन्स हैं और गुरु में भी ऐसे बहुत सारे लाइन्स थे। जैसे कि आपने कहा कि आपको जो करना है कर लो, उखाड़ लो, वही वाला जो एटीट्यूड है, तो
मैं रुकूंगा ही नहीं।
हाँ, मैं रुकूंगा नहीं, और ऐसे इन लोगों को मतलब समाज से उखाड़ के फेंक देना चाहिए। You know, when he talks very bravely in front of Abhishek about it. That was all, I think, Mr. Mani Ratnam's touch, his amazing research and his understanding of human emotions and how equations are created. I think he does it very well. As actors, we're just trying to match up to his expectation at that time.
So what are the fond memories that you have had with him beyond the films he did with you? dining with him, discussing things with him, books, movies from other genres? What are the best memories that you have had with him?
So what am I in awe of with Mani sir is the fact that the amount of different genres that he's excelled in. I don't think any director in the world, and I mean it, I don't think any director in the world can actually compete with the excellence that he's achieved in all the genres, be it patriotic, be it Roja, be it Bombay, or Alai Paire, which is a romantic film, or Kanathal Muttumittal, which is, or the Iruvar, which is based on history, or, PS2, which is like,
Correct.
the kind of things that he has done there, the absolute variety is mind-boggling. So when you sit with him, I mean, a lot of people have great conversations with him, but for me, it's always observing. How is this man thinking? How does he think out of the box? How does he convey his ideas? What does he do to set up a team that actually believes and goes after him? Of course, his work itself is enough for people to be convinced that they want to be part of a legacy. But apart from that, how does he motivate them to go beyond? And I'm his protege. I've done 4 or 5 films with his company and him. And I just think that I wish I have as much conviction about what I'm doing at his age that he has right now.
Did you consult him before making Rocketry?
No. So the thing is, I realized that one thing that he keeps saying is, take a camera and shoot it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And you know what? If I have to start learning, then it's an extremely discouraging situation, because I have to start from film school, and I never went to an acting school or a film school. I didn't know about lenses. I did not know about editing. I have never done anything related to the film industry, and I've managed to make it this far. So I'm going with that conviction that maybe I'm doing something right without having to understand what my talent is and put it in a box. So I went and did have a couple of consultations with him when I was doing my earlier films like Minnale and everything. But then I realized his point of view was his point of view, and he would either agree or disagree with what we had in mind. But eventually it made more sense with me to go with my gut, which is what Gautam Menon and I did. We started going with our gut for Minnale, and that paid off. And Rehna Tere Dil is one of those films. Of course, we were accused of not being, about a lot of things about how we should treat women and stuff like that, which I have my own debates and arguments about. But it worked. The public liked it, and it's still talked about. So I think with Mani sir, I just realized that he encourages you to find your own path. And so that's what I've been doing.
Mr. Madhavan, you've talked about Rehna Tere Dil mein, how the Cupids were actually evolved in that era when people going to universities did not have much to talk about except playing romantic things in parks and the neighborhoods. But you showed the character how women can be chased, but the commitment of a lover boy must also be enhanced in its own way. But after a few years, when you played the role of a husband, from a lover boy to this husband of Tanu Weds Manu and then returns, you played that role amid the household domestic problems, where people like me, you get talked about being henpecked. We often live henpecked life in the worries, in the anxieties of the women in our lives as well, our wives. How essential today is that character today for you personally, and you feel that Tanu Weds Manu or Tanu Weds Manu returns should shape the career of men who want to establish their entrepreneurship, businessmen, industrialists with that sort of a spirit? How they should cope with women who say, ये आदमी तो अदरक जैसा हो गया है.
Yeah, I know.
Or for that matter, sex, कौन सा sex? 2013 में भाई दूज पे हुआ था.
So it was a lot of liberties that were taken. People that accuse us of being chauvinistic in Rehna Tere Dil mein, I can throw the same accusation back at them for saying, you guys laugh and clap and people call me an adrak and say, kahin se bhi badh raha hai. And you think that's a joke and it doesn't hurt a man. But I'm sure that men feel equally sensitive about it. But having said that, I don't feel anything about it. And I think every man takes it and, that's all part of our life. I don't think you should become hypersensitive. This is, I think, a largely Western concept that tries to make society so perfect. But it isn't. Men are and women are flawed in what they do. And I heard, in answering your question more appropriately would be, in a award function, I heard a guy saying that, he was an associate director and he fell in love with the heroine in his earlier stages. He was from Chennai, and how this romance developed, and he fell in love with her, and he didn't think he was worthy of her, but she still loved him, and they got married. And so within the first year, the problem started, and they could not see eye to eye on any issue, and they were like at loggerheads and fighting all the time, and so they decided to bloody divorce and get rid of it. And he comes from a very small town, and he said, this divorce was a big step for me. I don't know how we could have managed it. And so as a last resort, he went and talked to his father and said, this is happening, I wanted to let you know. And his father called him and sat down and said the most wise words I've ever heard in my life. He said, son, you're going to be fighting 2 battles in your life, 2 very big battles. One is for the control at home, and the other is a control of your career. And the truth of the matter, the universal truth is, you can only win one war. Choose which one you want to fight. And I think those are very, very wise ones.
So what happened in that case?
Yeah, so he said, I just surrendered at home. I let her lead the house the way she wanted it, make those decisions, because she was fronting those battles, and she was also had given up her career for me. I had to respect that. And so he says, today I'm winning this Best Director award.
Life.
Sorry?
Is he leading a successful married life now?
Yes, he is. In fact, yeah, I think we have to give up one way or the other. I mean, the amount of respect you should have for your spouses, if you look at it from their eyes sometimes, you realize that, they are fighting equally big battles. And what is required is a little bit of love, a little bit of understanding. And when you do that, somehow, when the house is taken care of, you're able to fight these battles outside. I mean, if Alexander the Great had to worry about what, was happening at his home every day, and he had a mobile phone to find out what was going wrong and was having an affair with whom, I don't think he would have conquered the world. That's the bottom line.
But Mr. Madhavan, you have also been someone who has never been accused of anything which would destroy the person's personal life. I've never seen you being accused of having any affairs outside.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
I mean, of course, for the comic touch that you always have, the romantic notion which is always subscribed to you, you do not come across as someone who can actually cheat a woman. You also are a doting father, which I mentioned in my intro as well, which speaks volumes about your commitment to your family values. I want to understand how difficult or easy it has been for you to be a father to a young kid and tell him not to enter into movies, stay away from the limelight of the film industry, and how you have set this example, because I every day see you telling the public very proudly, sharing his feats. About a few days back only, you shared his feat, a momentous feat for him, and his medal taking picture as well.
So I am in love with the film industry. Okay, I think it's a fact. Like I say, there's no biz like show business. And if my son wants to join it at any given point of time, I will never stop him. I just want him to know that it's a very challenging field, and I've never stopped him from doing anything that he wants. And if he wants to join the film industry, it's his call. I mean, I will help him however he wants to, because that's the dream of my son. For him, swimming was his calling. As a parent, I had heard some very wise parents speak before about how they brought up good children, and they had said that don't give your child free time. Make sure that his whole day is regulated from when he is 4 years old till he is 14 years old.
Right.
That his day is regulated and he gets to do what he wants, but it's done at a particular time. And most importantly, उसको इतना थका दो ना कि बच्चे को कि उसको हमें ज़बरदस्ती सुलाना नहीं पड़ता है कि वो 8-9 बजे ना थके आ रहे सो जाता है. There is a difference between going to sleep and being asked to sleep.
Correct.
I think the problem that the children have today right now is the parents asking them and requesting them to go to sleep, क्योंकि वो थके आ रहे नहीं हैं. सब कुछ डिजिटली हो रहा है, तो बाहर जाके लड़ना, खेलना, भागना, कूदना, ये सब हो नहीं रहा है, and उसकी वजह से I realized कि वो नहीं करना मेरे बेटे के साथ. So I used to make sure that his training was so in what he wanted to do.
He studied largely in Dubai?
No. I only moved to Dubai a year and a half, 2 years ago. Vedaant was born in Chennai, lived a considerable amount of time in Chennai, and almost all his life in Mumbai.
Right.
So his swimming was part of our curriculum there. Only thing is, Mumbai, when the COVID happened and all the pools closed and Vedaant was on his growth spurt, we had no choice. But if you stop training at that age, then there is no scope for you in the international level. तो हमको मजबूरन जाना पड़ा.
So how difficult it was finding instructors for him for swimming?
No, thankfully, one of the Dronacharya Award instructors was in Dubai training the Indian team. In fact, he is the trainer of one of the guys who did the A-cut to get into the Olympics this year, which was a record by itself.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Sergeant Prakash got into the Olympics with the A-cut, and Pradeep sir, who's my son's coach, was instrumental in doing that. So he had an Indian coach, an Indian team, and they were all training there during the COVID. So it all became very convenient.
Right.
So I'm very happy that Vedaant is following a dream. But having said that, he has a long way to go. I mean, Olympic standards are extraordinary, almost inhuman level, and Vedaant has to work really, really hard. this recognition might get in his way is what I think. We try to keep him away from all this limelight.
So which is today more overwhelming for you? The feats which Vedaant is getting for you, or the success which Rocketry got for you?
There's no achievement for a man greater than that of his offsprings is a very famous saying in English. So for me, of course, the fact that Vedaant is on a straight and narrow as of now and doing what he can for the sake of the country and his thing is, of course, a far more pleasurable thing for me. Having said that, I don't take away from my achievements and that of the team's achievements as far as Rocketry's outcome is concerned. We managed to make Nambi Effect an aspirational and a popular figure. And I hope that ISRO and science in India develops because of
Continues to grow like this. Now, coming back to your dialogues which you have mentioned, which became iconic dialogues, you say that when you speak certain of these dialogues, you're not aware of the fact that they will go on to become iconic dialogues. I may ask you some of those dialogues and if you can identify the films which they were. Theoretically तो मुझे डरना चाहिए पर practically मुझे डर नहीं लग रहा.
This was from Rang De Basanti. No? Sorry, let me...
Theoretically तो मुझे डरना नहीं चाहिए.
हाँ.
तो theoretically मुझे डरना चाहिए पर practically मुझे...
Tanu Weds Manu, one climax.
Correct. To understand you, the elephant wear underwear easy.
रामजी लंदन वाले.
अमेरिका में इंसान फ़ोन इस्तेमाल करते करते डेड हो जाए लेकिन लाइंस डेड नहीं होती.
रहना तेरे दिल में.
सेक्स? कौन सा सेक्स? पिछली बार 2013 में भाई दूज के टाइम हुआ था ये.
तनु वेड्स मनु रिटर्न्स.
टाइटैनिक में नहीं बल्कि रियल लाइफ में भी डूबते लड़के ही.
रहना तेरे दिल में.
दोस्त फेल हो जाए तो दुख होता है लेकिन दोस्त फर्स्ट हो जाए. Of course, I mean, how funny this is that we started this conversation with this powerful, iconic dialogue as well. And we, of course, want to wish you that you continue to grow. But the fact of the matter, Mr. Madhavan, today is that there was an era when the film industry only saw the rise of the Khans. You and some other actors, for that matter, were seen as an invasion from South India. What decades back was Mr. Kamal Hassan or Rajnikant as well. You never came across as someone who was a South Indian actor, but yet found and carved a niche for itself today, that from Prime Minister's office to regular North Indian like me, an Indian journalist as well, recognizes you for what you have done and brought laurels. And we want to wish you, what is that you did differently from these two actors which I mentioned, Rajnikant Saab or Kamal Hassan Saab, which actually made you a household name?
You're being very kind in comparing my achievements to the stalwarts from our industry. They have achieved a great amount of stuff, but I think the recognition that I've got in the national pan-India level is also largely because of my upbringing in Bihar, in Jamshedpur, whereas I can speak Hindi so fluently that I don't have to think about the word that I'm going to say, or I think in Hindi if I have to. And so the ability to associate to the characters that I'm playing on behalf of the audience becomes that much easier. If there's a hint of accent in it, or if there is, even when I'm giving an interview or talking about it for the publicity of the film, उनको पता चल जाता है कि भाई ये जो है साउथ के हैं या कहाँ के हैं, जिस तरीके से हिंदी हम बोलते हैं. और आपको पता है कि पूरे नॉर्थ में अलग अलग किस्म की हिंदी बोली जाती है. महाराष्ट्र में अलग, गुजरात में अलग, बिहार में अलग, दिल्ली में अलग, यूपी में अलग, पंजाबी हिंदी अलग होती है. तो because I can speak the tongue, the ability to relate becomes much easier, and therefore the popularity is easier to come by. Also, the choice of stories that I did. I think I think it's a very good question, and I don't think I've said this before, but I think it has to. No, I know that it has to be with the choice of roles that I did. I did not take my stardom or my heroism seriously. If I did that, I wouldn't be doing films like Tanu Weds Manu or Rocketry or any of the films that I managed to get me the kind of popularity it has. So when you take your stardom and your heroism seriously, and you have heroic shots and stuff like that, you're putting yourself in a pedestal without the audience putting you there in the first place by itself. So I think those choices were smart ones, and I'm grateful for those.
Considering the star cast which you had in your movies, you were often cast alongside some of the brave men of this country who were already dominating the Bollywood industry. But in some of the movies where you were cast opposite, or the female cast which was opposite you, was not extraordinary the starlets of the country. How do you find playing the role of what you did, Tanu Weds Manu and Returns, against Kangana Ranaut, and how do you see her success as far as Kangana is concerned, because she has been an equally fighter just like you. And like I said, they were not big starlets, and she also came from a small town like you.
If you look at all the female characters of the leading ladies in all my films, they're very, very strong. I had the good fortune of growing up with some really strong women in my house itself. My mother was the chief manager of a bank in Bihar for 30 years. So you see how strong people are and how women are strong. And between you and me, brother, I think they are the stronger of the species. They last much longer. If you look at your grandparents, I can promise you that today your grandfather would be actually relying more on your grandmother than vice versa.
Correct.
And so that's a universal truth that all men have to know. Having said that,
Reconcile with.
yeah, I have to reconcile with that. And having said that, with working with the likes of Kangana or Shalini, or who all the strong women that I've had the good fortune to work with, they're all women with opinion. They're not they're not pushovers, and they're not the cliched heroines who come in and dance in a couple of movies and get slapped by the man and walk away. Those are not the kind of films I've ever done or want to do in my life. And I think people who indulge in those kind of stories are really foolish in today's world. But to recognize the strength that they bring onto the screen, because of their personal achievements as well as their experience and their ability to act, is, I think, very, very important. And giving Kangana the due credit for it is extremely smart and important for all of us. And she's really an extraordinary actor who brings so much to the roles that she does. And look at what she's doing today across all genres of films. Quite an awe of what she's doing.
We'll wrap up this interview with a rapid fire question round. Sure. I'll ask you just 3 questions. Given a choice between a trip to Mars with Nambi sir, or watching cricket with your son, or watching Olympic medals being won by India with your son, 2, which one of them will be more
It's
inspiring?
very, very tough, man. It's really tough. I'm going to say, going to Mars with Nambi sir for sure. But I think if you say my son and the Olympics, then that beats everything.
Okay. Second question, Shah Rukh Khan or Kangana Ranaut?
In terms of what? In context?
Who will you sit with and drink coffee and share a food with a break bread with?
Oh, I've already done that with Kangana many times, so I think it would be Shah Rukh.
Third question, Prime Minister Narendra Modi or Prime Minister Manmohan Singh?
Oh, definitely Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
And is there a reason for that?
I think my father always says, I don't want to know how many hours you studied for your exams. What does the report card say? Both of them have their have their merits, but I will tell you that when I saw my earlier prime ministers visit countries abroad, especially the US and other summits, I used to see them stand in the back of the line, considered one of the other leaders of the world. And I used to feel bad. I felt that why are our leaders being shunned to the side? Right. But enter Mr. Modi, and if you see the standing that he has in the any international forum or summit that you go to, and people from the strongest nations around the world clambering to take his, get his attention or shake his hands, that makes me feel truly proud. And today we are a shining nation. So there are a lot of, let me say this when I have the chance. I think we have to remember that he's our prime minister. Barring all political and ideologies, he is our prime minister who's actually brought the country to where we stand today, and we're standing tall and glorious, right? So to not give credit to that is actually wrong. And secondly, we are who we are today because of so many years of culture and tradition and forces, and to keep that together despite what the neighbors are doing around us today is truly commendable. So why not? And I have no qualms in saying that I'm a huge fan of Prime Minister Modi.
Working with Mani Ratnam Saab again, or ensuring that Rocketry touches 100 crore club as well?
Rocketry touches 1000 crore club for sure.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you, Mr. Madhavan. It has been a pleasure knowing you in the flesh today. We wish you all the best for what you have achieved so far, and you continue to do that for us as well, and inspire each of this countryman with whatever acting skills that you have, and also the protagonists that you have picked up in this film. We continue to see that more in future films as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
it has been, of course, a pleasure
you.
having you on this show.